Ireland's oldest town discovered. Ancient Irish settlement discovery challenges Viking town theory. A groundbreaking archaeological discovery in Ireland may upend long-held beliefs that the Vikings built the Ireland's first town. A team of researchers led by Dr. Drake Brandon from Queen's University Belfast has identified an enormous late Bronze Age settlement at Brusselstown Ring, a finding that could reshape the understanding of early urban life in Ireland and Britain. Now let's explore the deeper layers of this story here on the AI podcast.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a trip back to prehistoric Ireland. And the history books you might have learned from, it's probably time to find the nearest recycling bin because it seems like everything we thought we knew about early Irish settlement is, well, about to be thrown out the window. We're focusing on a truly astounding discovery in the beautiful, rugged Wicklow Mountains. It's this massive settlement known as Brusselstown Ring, and it dates back nearly 3,200 years to the late Bronze Age. And the scale of this place is the real shockwave here. Archaeologists believe it contains evidence of more than 600 dwellings. That number 600 homes is just so far outside the established historical timeline that it fundamentally rewrites a key piece of Irish history. So our mission today is to deep dive into the findings at Brusselstown Ring. We want to understand what the research shows, look at the evidence for its immense scale and, its engineering, and figure out why the site is now directly challenging that long-held assumption that the Vikings founded Ireland's first towns.
It's an absolutely electrifying moment for European archaeology. It really is.
Yeah.
And the research that's providing this fresh look is led by Dr. Dirk Branderm of Queen's University Belfast, and it's just published in the journal Antiquity. The site itself, it sits within the Baltinglass Hill Fort cluster, which, we already knew was a region of historical importance. But, Brusselstown Ring is proving to be something wholly distinct.
Okay, let's unpack this. For the average person, for you, the listener, the mental image of the Bronze Age in Ireland is like small, scattered family units, right? Maybe a couple of roundhouses on a farmstead. That picture just immediately shatters when you hear the initial assessment of Brusselstown Ring.
It truly does. I mean, this site is identified as potentially the largest nucleated prehistoric settlement ever found. And not just in Ireland, but in Britain as well. That's the first piece of information that just makes you sit up and realize, okay, we're dealing with a completely different social structure here.
Let's get granular on the numbers because I think this is where the surprise factor really hits hardest.
Absolutely. The site shows evidence of incredible sustained density. So, if you look at the layout, they've identified around 98 house platforms concentrated inside an inner enclosure.
Okay, 98. That's already a very respectable number.
It is, but that's just the start. Beyond that, there are more than 500 additional platforms, and they're situated between two absolutely massive stone ramparts.
Yo, wait, 500 more?
500 more. We're talking about evidence for over 600 roundhouse dwellings concentrated in one single location. This occupation suggests an extremely high population density and, sophisticated organization. And we're dating this primarily to the late Bronze Age, so around 1200 BC, with some structural reuse maybe continuing into the early Iron Age.
This isn't just a discovery, it's a total reclassification. We have to remember the context here. Previously, historians accepted that Bronze Age communities lived in these tiny hamlets, often just 1 to 5 dwellings. A dozen houses was considered a really significant find.
Right. And to emphasize just how unprecedented this scale is, before this discovery, the largest known Bronze Age cluster was a place called Proto-Town in County Londonderry. It was discovered back in 2002, and at the time, it was heralded as the first true Bronze Age village.
And Proto-Town had, 74 roundhouses? I think that was the number?
Exactly, 74. Proto-Town showed organization, but it was on a human, sort of small community scale. Brusselstown Ring, with its 600-plus structures, is operating on an order of magnitude we simply didn't believe existed in this region at that time.
So when Dr. Brandterm says Brusselstown Ring is a different ballgame altogether and that it goes well beyond a village, that transition is so critical. A settlement of 600 homes isn't just a bigger village. It must require centralized management, logistical planning, social cohesion on an almost national scale.
That organizational leap is precisely what challenges the historical timeline so profoundly. For centuries, we've relied on the accepted theory that the Vikings, starting in the 9th century AD, were the ones who introduced the concept of organized, permanent, urbanized centers to Ireland.
Right, they founded Dublin and the other port cities?
Exactly. But Brusselstown Ring existed 2 millennia, that's 2,000 years, before the Vikings even set foot on the island. So if this is confirmed as a proto-town, a center of organization and population density, it means we have completely fundamentally underestimated the level of social advancement and complexity attained by late Bronze Age Irish communities.
But what's the specific evidence that moves this site from being just a really big village to meeting the label Proto-Town? Is it only the size, or is there more to it?
It's the infrastructure needed to support that many people. That's the key. And the archaeologists are looking closely at two major pieces of evidence that show massive coordinated public works.
Okay.
First, the sheer scale demands central management of resources, and second, the architecture is simply staggering.
Let's start with the architecture, because that's the physical evidence you can point to and say, someone was in charge here.
Precisely. The settlement is not just enclosed, it's defended and defined by two widely spaced stone ramparts. These ramparts are colossal, and they were designed not just to surround the main summit of Brusselstown, but also to integrate the neighboring Spinans Hill 1.
Wait, they span 2 hills? I'm trying to picture the engineering challenge there. We aren't talking about a simple stone wall somebody put up.
No, not at all. This is immense earth-moving and construction. It actually makes Brusselstown Ring one of the very few hill forts in all of Europe to span more than a single hill mass. The researchers call this a remarkable feat of prehistoric engineering.
I'll say.
Imagine the resources, the stone, the sheer human labor, the time required to coordinate such a massive integrated space. This project would have taken years, maybe even generations, and it would have required undisputed central authority to command that kind of labor pool.
It speaks volumes about the level of political and social organization. You don't undertake a project like that just because a few families got together. This was a strategic investment for a large, unified population.
And that large, unified population needed one thing above all else on a hilltop.
Water.
Water. And this brings us to the second and equally compelling piece of evidence for sophisticated infrastructure.
This is where it gets really fascinating for me, the management of resources for this population density. Tell us about this suspected cistern.
So archaeologists uncovered a very unique stone-lined chamber near one of the excavation trenches. It's described as being boat-shaped, and significantly, it's larger than a typical domestic roundhouse.
Okay, so it's not just another house.
Exactly. And most crucially, this structure appears to have been situated to receive flow from a stream coming off an uphill outcrop.
So the hypothesis is that it was a water cistern, a centralized storage facility for fresh water for the whole community.
That's the strong suggestion. You don't invest in building a large, stone-lined water storage chamber unless you are actively managing a resource for a large, concentrated population, especially one located on a high hill. This goes so far beyond the needs of a scattered hamlet.
And the significance of finding a cistern here is just immense, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
If future dating confirms this structure belongs to the late Bronze Age occupation, it would be the first known Bronze Age cistern in all of Ireland.
The first one ever.
The first one. To find comparable examples, we have to look much further south into the sophisticated societies of, say, France and Spain. That either suggests this community developed this advanced water management technology independently, which is amazing, or they were part of a wider network of technological exchange than we previously imagined. Either way, it completely elevates our view of their engineering skill.
So we have the scale, which is unparalleled. We have the central planning implied by the 2 hill ramparts. And we have the sophisticated logistics of a potential water cistern. Now the question moves to the social dynamics within those 600-plus structures. How equal was this proto-town?
That was the core focus of the test excavations carried out in 2024. The archaeologists specifically chose 4 test trenches, ranging from 6 to 12 meters in diameter, representing different sizes of roundhouses they had mapped. They were trying to determine if that architectural variation reflected a social or economic hierarchy.
And the variation is huge. I mean, we're talking about a major difference in footprint here. The smallest structures measured around 4 to 5 meters in diameter, but the largest ones reached a massive 11 to 12 meters across.
That difference is really compelling. To put that into perspective for you, a 4 or 5 meter diameter house is generally functional for a small single-family unit.
Right, a hearth, a sleeping area, that's about it.
Exactly. A 12-meter structure is nearly 3 times the diameter and potentially 5 or 6 times the usable floor space.
So what would a building that size have been used for? It seems far too large just for one nuclear family.
It immediately raises several possibilities, and they all point towards specialization or status. It could have been a communal building, perhaps a feasting hall, a central meeting place, or even a place for specialized craftwork, like smelting or weaving that required heavy equipment. Or it could have been the residence of a chieftain or a prominent lineage, requiring space to store surplus wealth and host extended family or retainers.
So the size difference certainly begs the question of whether some social differentiation existed, as Dr. Brandurm put it. It strongly suggests there was some structure of power or specialization that allowed certain individuals or families access to significantly more resources and labor for construction.
That's the logical conclusion, yes.
Yeah.
But this is where the scientific rigor becomes absolutely essential. As interesting as that size variation is, Dr. Brandurm was very careful to caution that the current evidence is not yet sufficient to confirm a clear social hierarchy.
Why the caution? I mean, if one house is 3 times the size of another, isn't that evidence enough?
We need to see what's inside. We need the internal features. We need the artifacts. For example, if we excavate the smaller houses and find simple domestic debris, but then we dig up a 12-meter house and find specialized craft tools, imported materials, or items of high ceremonial value,
Then you have your smoking gun.
then you have a much stronger case for hierarchy. Right now, without a broader look at the contents and internal layout of these structures, it's just differentiation, not confirmed hierarchy. We need to know how they lived in these spaces.
That brings us squarely to what comes next. This research, published in Antiquity, it really feels like just the opening act. There's so much more excavation needed to solidify this interpretation of the site as a proto-town.
Future research is critical and has a very clear focus. First, the archaeologists need to confirm the precise date and function of that unique suspected cistern.
That's a huge one.
Huge. Then they need to get inside those prehistoric roundhouses and identify those internal features we just talked about, hearths, storage pits, post holes, to truly understand the lives lived there.
And what about the ramparts?
And they need to establish the chronology of those enormous enclosing ramparts. Did the community build those all at once, or were they expanded over generations as the population grew?
Answering that would tell us whether the central authority was established quickly or if it evolved over a long period.
Right. But what stands out, and what is most important for you, the listener, to take away, is the magnitude of the historical revision we're undertaking. Brusselstown Ring fundamentally reshapes how archaeologists and the public must now understand prehistoric Ireland. We are shifting the narrative from scattered small-scale farming communities to undeniable evidence of complex, organized, and even urban-scale communities thriving millennia before written records began. It showcases this advanced society that flourished independently and developed sophisticated planning and engineering on a scale that completely outstrips our previous models of the era.
So what does this all mean for us? I think the core takeaway is crystal clear. 2,000 years before the Vikings established the first recognized permanent urban centers in Ireland, there was a massive, complex, and potentially highly engineered Bronze Age community in Wicklow. A community managing resources and labor for hundreds of dwellings. It just forces a complete historical reevaluation.
Indeed. And if this community was capable of such sophisticated feats like coordinating the labor for ramparts spanning 2 hills and designing centralized water management for 600 families, it raises a really important and provocative question. What other advanced forms of social management, political structure, or even long-distance trade might we yet uncover among these Bronze Age communities that allowed them to sustain this level of urban density, possibly for centuries?
A question that future deep dives will certainly be attempting to answer. Until then, keep
Okay,
digging.
one question for you. What is the Brusselstown Ring and why is it considered archaeological significant? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.